If you've ever worked a night shift, you know the silence. It's not peaceful, it's heavy. It's the sound of the world deciding you don't matter. I took the job as a security monitor at an empty corporate building. My job: watch 24 CCTV feeds. The pay was great and the work was non-existent. I just had to sit there and wait for 5 a.m. There was one camera though, camera 7. It pointed down a decommissioned 50-yard hallway on the 3rd floor. It was always dark and it was always still, just a strip of faded carpet disappearing into black. My first 2 weeks were fine. Boring. Utterly, beautifully boring. Until the 3rd week. That's when I noticed the flicker on camera 7. It was only for a millisecond, a slight change in the blackness at the very end of the hall. It looked like a small, misplaced shadow, like a crumpled jacket on the floor. I checked the logs. Nothing. I figured it was a compression artifact, an old system, bad wiring. I convinced myself. I had to convince myself, but I started checking camera 7 more often. 2 nights later, at exactly 2:47 a.m., it was there again. The shadow. But this time it wasn't a jacket. It was too structured, too tall. It was leaning like something tired, and it was slightly closer. My heart started racing. I muted the monitor to listen. Silence. Complete, suffocating silence. It had moved, but the motion sensor logs were still empty. It was impossible. I called the supervisor, who just laughed and told me to get some coffee. I stared back at the screen, and I watched the end of that hallway, knowing deep in my gut that whatever that thing was, it was watching me back. The next night I was ready. I kept the feed full screen. 2:47 a.m. came and went. Nothing. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. And then, at 3:17 a.m., it happened. The shadow was no longer at the end of the hall. It was halfway down. And it wasn't leaning anymore. It was standing. And it was taller than any human should be. It looked like a stick figure drawn in absolute darkness. I didn't move. I couldn't. I could see the camera lens slightly distorted at the center of the hall, and then slowly, agonizingly slowly, the figure raised its arm. Not a wave, a point. It was pointing directly at the camera, directly at me. I tore my eyes away from the screen, heart slamming against my ribs. I scrambled for the keyboard to switch the feed, but I froze. Because on the screen, the figure was now right up to the lens. It wasn't a shadow, it was a distorted, impossibly long face pressed against the glass. No eyes, just the terrifying reflection of my own overhead office light in the glass where its face should have been. It wasn't a shadow. It was a distorted, impossibly long face, pressed against the glass. No eyes. Just the terrifying reflection of my own overhead office light in the glass where its face should have been. But there's something I can't shake. When I finally threw out my old work ID, I looked at my photo. The background was blurry, but you could faintly see a long, dark hallway behind me. And reflected in the glass of the badge photo, you could see a single, long finger pointing directly at the lens. I don't need a monitor anymore. I know where the camera is.